So my name is Bovis and I've just completed Kilimanjaro. I summited in December 2018. I grew up watching films like Born Free, and so I think the location is a huge draw for me. The fact that you can easily tie in a safari, something like that, just made it a really attractive prospect. It also is challenging but very doable, so that excited me. And the third reason is because it is one of the 7 summits, and I do have this vague plan to eventually climb all 7 summits on the 7 continents at some point. So yeah. So I was in Kenya, so I actually took a bus from Nairobi down to Moshi, which was a great experience. Got to meet lots of local people. However, I don't still really understand what went wrong, but basically the bus kind of stopped when it got to Arusha, which was about 50 kilometers from where I needed to be. So that was slightly problematic, and I was going to be late for the sort of pre-climb briefing. But luckily I overheard an American woman talking to her son, and they said they were going to go and get a taxi. So I just sort of said, could I possibly jump in the taxi with you? You're going in my direction. And then I just paid the taxi driver to take me on once he dropped them off to the hotel, and crisis averted, and got there on time. So that was fine. And then when I left, when I'd got back down the mountain, I was going on to Zanzibar. So I actually flew out of Kilimanjaro airport, and it was a great airport, lots of flights leaving from there and really easy to get there. So I chose the Mashame route, and I did it over 7 days, so I felt that gave me the best chance for acclimatization. The other thing about Mashame is that it's renowned for its fantastic views. It's also got a few nice sort of challenging bits where you have a bit of a scramble, like the Barranco Wall, which is a 300-meter sort of cliff face, but it's got some really nice kind of like wide ledges, so it's not as scary as it sounds, but you kind of just can scramble up, and it's just a bit more exciting than the kind of sometimes monotonous kind of walking along, basically. It didn't disappoint in any way. The views were incredible, and it gave plenty of time to acclimatise, because you come up and then you end up walking east kind of around the mountain, and you kind of go this classic hike high and then sleep low, which is just perfect for acclimatisation. The best part was definitely the mornings. I'm quite a morning person, so I would get up before anyone else in my group, apart from obviously the porters. You can never beat them up, and get up and go outside the tent and just have a look at the view. It's just always incredible, because Kilimanjaro being a freestanding mountain and not part of a range means that obviously it's kind of affects the weather in quite weird ways. While we were there during the day, we had a lot of cloud cover, which meant you couldn't see that far, but in the mornings, if you got up early enough, the cloud was all just sitting really low, so you could just see like a blanket of cloud as far as you could see. The only thing that interrupts it is Mount Meru in the distance. So it was just stunning, and then the sun kind of comes up, and as soon as it hits you, it's super warm, and it's just, yeah, really lovely part of the day. It has to be the summit day. I think because of the lack of sleep, because you set off so early in the morning while it's still dark so that you can reach the summit for sunrise, yeah, you haven't really had that much sleep. And also because it's dark, you know, you're wearing a head torch, kind of all you've got to focus on is this tiny area lit up by your head torch, and you sort of got your head down because it's quite cold, and it was really windy when we did it. and you're in the alpine desert zone, so because of the lack of oxygen in the air, nothing really grows, so the ground is quite sort of that scree texture, and it's a little bit like it slips a bit, so you have to keep concentrating on where you're putting your feet, and so it just seemed to go on for hours, but of course completely worth it once you got to the top. So part of my preparation was to actually hike Mount Kili in Morocco, because I was very curious to how I would react to the altitude. So I hadn't done anything above 3,000 meters, and Mount Kili is 4,000 meters. So I mean, really it was just another excuse to climb another mountain, but it kind of gave me peace of mind that I coped with that fine, didn't feel sick or had a headache. So it gave me just a bit more confidence that when I got to Kilimanjaro, that I think I'd probably be okay with the altitude as long as I took it slowly. But I definitely wouldn't say that you have to do that before you do Kilimanjaro at all. And then general fitness, I like to keep fit anyway, but I've built a bit more into my routine in the gym, where I'd sort of do the Stairmaster and things like that, sort of hiking activities. But actually, I don't think fitness is necessarily, I don't think you have to worry about it too much, as long as you're comfortable walking sort of 4 or 5 hours a day, I think it's fine. So I was very lucky. The only bit of altitude sickness I experienced was a slight headache one morning, and after I did a few deep yoga breaths and drank a lot of water, and it was kind of gone by midday. I did resist taking any pain medication because I was quite curious to be really aware of the effects, and I think sometimes obviously they just mask it, they don't actually solve the source of your headache. So I wasn't on any pain medication, and that was literally all I felt. A couple of people in my group got slightly worse, just slightly more severe headaches, but no one was sick or anything like that. So I was in Africa for 4 weeks total, and this was just 1 week out of my trip. So I actually didn't want to lug around a big massive sleeping bag and a big down jacket, so I ended up hiring both those pieces of kit in the town called Moshi, which is you've got Arusha and Moshi, so Moshi's very close to the start of definitely the Mashame route, and that had a little shop in it, which I can't remember the name, but yeah, they just had everything you could want. I mean, they even had hiking boots, loads of them. They had gloves, gaiters, anything. I mean, you could rock up there with nothing and they'd probably kit you out. And that was great. It was really easy to hire it. It was all good kit, and I think it cost me about $100 for the whole week, which is incredible because the sleeping bag was comfortable down to a range of about -20, I think. So it was a huge, lovely big down sleeping bag, and would have cost hundreds to buy. So that was a great solution for me. In terms of kit, I mean, I tend to go less is more on all my trips. I'm also of the mindset of you should ideally be able to carry what you bring, even though you have lovely porters who take it up for you, which is fantastic. I kind of feel like it's responsible to be able to actually carry what you want, what you need. But in hindsight, I probably would have taken kind of more changes of clothes, because I am very much used to roughing it and having packing minimal, but it probably would have been nicer for my trekking mates if I'd kind of had some different clothes to wear. So every time we walked into camp, everything was already set up for us because the porters had left after us and then overtaken us with all our kit, got to the campground and then set it all up, which is the ultimate luxury in my mind. So if you were tired or anything, you could literally crawl straight into your tent. There'd also be a mess tent set up where you'd sit in there to eat. So we actually spent a lot of time in there with my group, kind of playing cards as well and just kind of relaxing all together, which was really lovely. Every campground actually does have a couple of toilets, which I was really surprised about. Kind of nice surprise. They are the long drop toilets, which are pretty gross, but you kind of just get on with it and get used to it. There is an option of actually hiring a extra porter to bring up a loo chemical toilet that you kind of sit on one, which I guess is a really good option if you feel like you might have problems with your knees, like squatting and things like that. So there is that option, which 2 people on my group actually chose. But the long drop toilets, I just feel like it's all part of it. You've kind of just got to embrace it. But yeah, no, I never felt unsafe. The guides are just brilliant. They're so knowledgeable. I think between the 3 guides that we had, they'd summited over 100 times. They just, they do it for their living. They take a new group up pretty much every 2 weeks, I think, throughout the hiking season. And they were great. I mean, sometimes would kind of walk to the edge of like a big rock and like trying to get the best, Instagram selfie, and they would be like, Grace, please be careful, please be careful. So they just constantly were looking out for you, and they were actually incredibly observant about the effects of altitude. So they constantly were kind of, in a nice way, just asking, oh, how do you feel today? Have you got a headache? And just taking like a quick check with us, kind of probably when we got up midday and kind of roughly in the evening as well, which I thought was really lovely and just made me feel like they were totally on top of it, and I kind of didn't need to worry about it because they would pick up on any signs. So if I could do it all again, I probably would have actually tried to do it in 6 days. I think, yes, the altitude is something to consider, and by extending the trip as many days as possible, you're giving yourself the best chance to actually reach the summit, which is obviously the ultimate goal. But I quite like kind of challenging myself, and I would have, liked to see if I could have done it in less time, I think. But yeah, that's the only thing. It was great.